Apologies for that, year 11. The last video seemed to cut out for some reason. So what I've done is I've obviously carried this on from part 1. So the first part will be on YouTube, and this part will obviously finish off part 1. So as I was talking in the last video, we were talking about the increasing of birth. We were talking about people that were sterilised. We were talking about the results of Nazi policies towards women. So marriages did increase by 21%. There were 30% more births, but Hitler really saw that as a bit of a failure because he thought there should be more. And women liked being important to Germany, so support for the Nazis was very high. The next thing we need to focus on is children. So children and education and the Hitler Youth. So, and then I'm going to give you some tasks to do for the end of part 1, ready for part 2, which will talk a bit more about Hitler and the economy. So with children and education, the school system was one of the main tools to indoctrinate German children when they had to go to school until they were 14. There were separate schools for boys and girls. So you had the military skills for boys, domestic skills for girls. PE lessons doubled, religious education was stopped, and race and Nazi beliefs were introduced into the curriculum. All textbooks were rewritten to fit with the Nazi view of history, and Mein Kampf became a core textbook. So every lesson would obviously be focused around these textbooks, and every lesson also had to begin with a Heil Hitler salute. Now, the curriculum was based around Nazi ideology. So history books emphasized Germany's military success, and they blamed the Jews for losing World War I. Maths taught about military tactics on how to solve the economic cost of disabled people in Germany. And race studies were introduced to push the Nazi racial policies on to the Aryans. Girls were taught about motherhood, genetics, another lesson called eugenics, and how to be an ideal Nazi housewife. Every teacher had to join the Nazi Teacher Alliance, where 97% of them joined, and had to teach Nazi curriculum or risk being fired. Students were encouraged to inform on their teachers if they were not pro-Nazi. And the Nazis also set up special leadership schools, such as the Adolf Hitler School, to train future Nazi leaders, and Napolas for political leaders, and SS soldiers and officers. Down the other side of the board, you've got the list of the lessons in regards to what the Nazis did for each curriculum area. This, I'll give you time to read through this because it is something we did, but this breaks down what each subject would focus on in terms of Nazi ideology. And if you were to write about this as an exam question, you'd have to give specifics about how each subject focused on Nazi ideals. The second way the Nazis tried to indoctrinate young people was through youth groups. Okay, now the youth were seen as the future of Germany. So youth groups were another springboard for the Nazis to indoctrinate people. And you had Baldur von Schirach, who became the leader of the Nazi youth organizations. And one of the first things he did was ban any other organizations, so things like scouts, etc., etc. There were different groups of boys. So you had, the age 6 to 10, you had the Pimpfer. 10 to 14, you had the German young people, and the Cubs. And 14 to 18, the Hitler Youth. And the aims were to focus on physical training and brainwashing in Nazi ideology. And they did a range of activities. You can read through these on the other side of the board, but this is a summary. Military style, so marching, camping, hiking, map reading, rifle shooting. They had uniforms, which were very similar to the SS, which gave them that sense of comradeship. All members had to swear an oath of loyalty and learn Nazi ideology and race theory. So they had lessons called German Heroes and Evils of the Jew. By 1932, the membership of this group was around 108,000. And by the time that the Hitler Youth Act was passed in 1936, membership was compulsory. Now, if you were a girl in the Nazi period, you'd obviously be, you'd start a little bit later. So 10 to 14, you joined the Young Girls League, the Junge Badelmund, I think it was called. And then the age of 14 to 18, you had the League of German Girls, the League of German Maidens, which the aim of this was to prepare the girls for lives as wives and mothers. They would do some similar activities, so like the marching, the camping, the hiking, but they would do other things, so sports used to enhance fitness, strength and beauty. Girls had to be able to run 60 meters in 14 seconds. Girls were trained to cook, iron, sew, and prepare for life as a housewife. And they were also taught the importance of racial hygiene, eugenics, the only need to marry a pure Aryan man. Were they successful? Yes and no. Mainly yes, because so many children joined. Millions joined. They went on to join the army, have Aryan children. It was popular. It was like making the youth become fanatical Nazis. Many young also liked the comradeship and the togetherness of the Hitler Youth to help build Germany's future of the Thousand-Year Reich. However, there were groups like the Edelweiss Pirate, the Swing Youth, the White Rose Movement, who were anti-Nazi. There were some children who just didn't like the military strict nature towards as World War II approached. And despite high membership, thousands avoided attended meetings because they thought it was a bit too military for their age. Some of them just wanted to be children. Okay. So this is the end of part 1, year 11. And just to overview part 1, I think it'd be useful for you to do a little bit of exam practice. So this is obviously totally off your back. There's a couple of questions here. Explain why there were changes in the lives of young people. You can just add some few paragraphs here. You only need to do 3 paragraphs, obviously, for a 12 marker. Explain why there were changes in the lives of women in the years 33 to 39. Then you've got a useful question here. How useful are sources G and H for inquiry into the Hitler Youth? So remember, content, own knowledge, provenance. And then what can you infer from source I about the Hitler Youth in Germany? 4 marks. If you complete any of these, obviously just pop me an email and I'll mark them. All right, but that is the end of part 1. And for the next part, we'll be looking a bit more at how Hitler reduced unemployment, standard of living, treatment of minorities, and the treatment of the Jewish population. Thanks very much, year 11.